Let's go ahead and take a look at another condition. Let's take a look at the threshold condition. We're going to go ahead and Alt right click to get rid of some of these other ones that we had out here. And let's expose the red particle's age again, and we'll delete some of these. Now what threshold does is it takes a value and looks at that value and says, okay, in its default configuration here, it's just set to 1, 0, and no checkbox there. What this means is that it's going to look at the value coming in and say, okay, does this value, is it at least 1? So is it a minimum of at least 1? Now you can also say, I want to detect if this value is inside this range. Is it inside 1 and 10? That's where the inside is at. If the inside is not checked, we'll go ahead and modify this here a little bit so we can see it easier. What will happen is, if inside is not checked, then it uses these as kind of an exclusion. So it says anything inside 5 to 20, inside that range, is not going to be true. And so when this red particle's age is 0 till almost 5, he's going to output true, and these green particles are going to be born. But then once he turns 5, we'll set these particles to only live for 1, the green particles. Once he turns 5, they stop being born, all the way until he's age 20. Once he turns outside of 20, then he starts giving birth to them again. So threshold will measure a value and determine if it's inside a certain range or if it reaches a minimum value. Is it inside that range or even outside of that range? And threshold is very, very useful for measuring all different kinds of values and determining whether they're true. Let's also take a quick look at another way of using the inside and inverting this value. Anytime we use conditions, there's a helper that we might find useful is the invert. It's basically going to take this Boolean output and just give the inverse of it. So if it's true, it turns false. If it's false, it turns true. So right now, we would say here we would want to measure the age and say, is it within 10 and 50? Is it inside that? And if it is, then output a true. That true comes into invert, it becomes a false, and is sent out to here. So now, once we're inside 10 or 50, it's actually going to come out to a false to here to not be born. So up until 10, it's going to give birth to them. And then it will start giving birth again once we're outside 50. Now, of course, we could have done that just by modifying and unchecking this inside. But it's just important to remember that you do have this helper invert available to use. So that's threshold. Let's go ahead and jump into the next condition,